live, we all know we live in a time of uncertainty. You probably all know what happened when almost 5,000 students were first visa revoked and civis status terminated, right? And then they were all restored. But it's also questions about traveling internationally now. So knowing what's going on at this time when it's a lot of uncertainty, we and provide actually support to our students to make sure you guys feel safer, to understand better what you can or cannot do. We organize series of webinars and invited Vivian today to join us and talk about maintaining F1 status and other topics that going to be actually uh, in that very general maintenance of F1 status, which actually might affect you. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Vivian, to being with us today.
Thank you, Raisa. Appreciate that as well. And as Raisa mentioned, this webinar is maintaining status and what it means now this year in 2025, especially with all of these changes. And today I would like to make a formal introduction of Viviane Afonso. Viviane was born in Rio de Janeiro, but grew up in Sao Paulo, Brazil. She has been living in Massachusetts for many years, and she loves living there so much that she became a U.S. Citizen. In Brazil, Viviane earned a bachelor's degree in law, equivalent to Juris Doctor from Mackenzie University in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the city where she first became a licensed attorney. She worked in several firms and also as an intern in the Ministerio Público of the state of Sao Paulo, the district attorney's office, which allowed her to have experience in different fields of law. In the United States, Viviane pursued a master's degree in American law from Boston University and became a licensed attorney in the state of Massachusetts. And she's very excited to have the opportunity to help all of her clients. Being able to work with the Brazilian community and work with her compatriots who feel comfortable speaking to their attorney in their first language is very rewarding to her. She feels grateful to see her clients achieve their dreams and to be able to develop her expertise on behalf of her clients. She is dedicated and enjoys working with a variety of people, and her high communication and customer service skills surely make a difference. When leading her cases, she interviews her clients and thoroughly investigates the details to make her clients' cases stronger. With her diverse legal background and work experience, she is committed to putting her training in practice to effectively solve the problems of those in need of representation. Viviane represents Gardini Law in Massachusetts, and she is here, and we welcome her to present here at this webinar. So welcome, Viviane. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk to the students and help explain a little bit everything that's been going on since the beginning of this year. Everything has been more tense when it comes to immigration. So I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions. So I'm going to talk about maintaining the status. That's the main theme of that we're going to be talking today, of the lecture today. But I also want to give some hints. That's what the presentation has. It's going to be more brief on the present. I would like to be more brief on the presentation and open more time for questions, because sometimes it's hard for us when we are talking to know exactly what people would like to know. And I think opening time for questions will be very good for them. So we're going to do that. If there are no questions for some reason, then we can talk about more things that I'm sure will be clarifying as well. Ramon and Raisa, again, thank you so much for having me. And let's then start talking about maintaining the status. And so just a broad view, in order to maintain the status, the students obviously need to follow the rules that the Department of Homeland Security put except for that, right? So they need to go to class, they need to not be absent, they need to have a percentage of presence in the classes. They cannot work unless they have an OPT, and if they come here with a visa, they can leave and come back, but if they change the status in the US, then they are not allowed to leave the country. They need to stay here, and even if they ask for authorization, some type of parole to leave the country, it's very risky to do that, because they will have to then ask for a visa back in their home country. They are not going to be able to return with the status they obtained in the US. They will have to ask for a visa back in their home country. So going to our first slide, please, Amon. We have here some topics about visa revocation by the US Embassy. So basically, if we have had cases in which the client received an email from the US Embassy just stating, we know you are on a student visa in the US, but now your visa has been revoked and you no longer have your visa. What does that mean exactly? So your status in the US is not automatically terminated by that email, unless on the email they clearly state that you have to leave the country, and they usually do that, giving you certain time. So they will say you must leave the country in, I don't know, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. If they don't clearly state that you need to leave the country, it basically means your visa is revoked, but not necessarily your status. So you can stay here studying and planning some other things, but you're not going to be able to leave the country and come back using that same visa. That specific visa has been revoked. So if the person leaves the country, that revoked visa becomes then invalid for re-entry. So then they will need to go to the consulate or the embassy again and ask for another visa. It can be the same type, so it can be another student visa, for example, for the same university, the same course, but they will need to go through the whole process again and obtain a new visa in order to come back. So why would the embassy revoke a student visa, for example? So basically the reasons can be an arrest or a criminal investigation, a criminal charge, any immigration violations. So like I said in the beginning of the lecture, if you work while you're in a student visa, for example, you are violating your immigrant visa. I'm sorry, not your immigrant visa, your student visa. And then immigration can then unfortunately revocate your visa. Any misrepresentation they may later find out, for example, let's say when you applied for your visa, you said, oh, my dad owns a company and he makes this much money and he's going to be paying for my course in the US, and later you give different information to the government saying, oh, my father is actually a teacher back home. Then you lied, you misrepresented a fact in order to obtain the visa, so they can go ahead and revoke your visa as well because of that fraud, that misrepresentation, that lie. And any reason regarding national security. So for example, we saw on the news very recently, a student at Tufts, she was arrested, and basically the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, said they arrested her because she was in pro of a certain, I don't even remember exactly where she was from, but like she was in pro of a group or some type of nationality. And that was the main problem. So unfortunately now with Trump, it's complicated when you say, I am in pro of Palestine, for example. I am in pro of China party, or if you are in pro of political or some nationality groups, that can unfortunately be a problem. So they can actually investigate and arrest you to further investigate if they see you have a post, for example, on your Instagram account, or if you are walking with, you know, a sign on the streets, they can unfortunately arrest you, and alleging national security, they can then later revoke your visa for that purpose. And public charge concerns, that would be more likely if you're asking for the government for any type of help. So if you're here, especially on a student visa, you have to show that you have financial means to pay for your course, for your rent, for your food, for your books, for everything. If you go, let's say, to an agency and ask for help to pay for your rent, or if you ask for any type of help from the government, that can then make your visa be revoked. This is kind of repetitive, so embassy revocations are likely to follow criminal charge, security concerns, or public benefits usage that can then cause that. So our advice is to always stay in compliance with the status and respect all of the limitations of your visa. If you are not sure if you can apply for something, if you can do something, if you can work or not, then it's always better to consult with an immigration lawyer to make sure that you're not going to be causing any issues to your visa and then possible future revocation. On our next slide, we're talking about applying from abroad after a visa revocation. So like I stated, if you came with a visa, you have the freedom to leave the country and come back using that same visa. However, if your visa gets revoked, like that example that I gave of the person that received an email stating her visa had been revoked, if she leaves the country, that visa is no longer valid. It has been revoked. So she will need to apply for a new one. Like I said, it can be the same course, the same university, but she's going to have to apply the whole process all over again. Unfortunately, it's not easy to obtain a visa after revocation. First of all, this person cannot lie, cannot say, oh, I never had any problems. I've never been in the US. My visa has never been revoked. She needs to always tell the truth. Misrepresentation, fraud, anything like that can be a problem for you forever. You will need a waiver. And if you don't have a qualifying relative for the waiver, you're never going to be able to get a waiver. So you're never, ever going to qualify for a visa ever again. So misrepresenting a fact is very serious with the US. So there are ways, like I said, there are ways, waivers that you can apply for misrepresentation, or even if you were deported or had your visa revoked for immigration violations in the US, you may be able to apply for a waiver, but you do need a qualifying relative. Who is a qualifying relative for a waiver? It's parents, USC or legal residents, or a spouse, USC or legal resident. So if you don't have any of that, you're not going to be able to apply for a waiver, and you might not be able to obtain a visa. Unfortunately, misrepresentation gets never deleted. So some types of inadmissibilities, such as staying in the US with unlawful presence after 10 years abroad, you kind of paid your bar and you are then eligible to apply for a waiver again. But with misrepresentation, time does not delete that from your record. So you will always need a waiver. If you don't have a qualifying relative, then you're done. The only chance you would have would be maybe the discretion of the officer at the embassy, but that's very unlikely to happen after you had problems here already. So like number 4 says, visa officers may deny discretionary waivers more aggressively and require more documentation. So those discretionary waivers would be the ones where you would have no qualifying relatives and you would just be asking based on the discretion of the officer, like, please don't harm my case, let me go back, I didn't do anything wrong, this is what happened. If you try to explain without any qualifying relative, discretion is very hard to be applied by the consular officers. They are very, very tough. Step number 5, you always need to disclose everything, all of your immigration history, so you don't get any misrepresentation on your record. Criminal activities, minor crimes and domestic violence. So minor crimes, even though driving without a license, for example, is a minor crime, that usually is not a cause for revocation of visas. But now with the administration that we have, any criminal record has been used as uh, as a motive for a visa to be revoked, or for even ICE going to court to take a defendant at at the criminal court. So lately, any type of crime, DUI, especially you drink, oh, let me just drink 1, 2 beers here at this party and then I'll drive, no one is gonna get me. Unfortunately, if that happens, it's a very serious crime in the US. Driving without a license is not so bad as DUI, but both of them can actually harm your future here. Any types of fights, especially if you're at a bar or at a party and someone starts, an argument, and then someone slaps the other one, and then you're in the middle of that confusion, and then that can also harm your future. So you need to be aware that criminal records in the US since the beginning of this year have been a big problem. Unfortunately, we have had clients that have gone to court for criminal hearings, and ICE is there. They are trying to actually take people, and the criminal court is a place they have been sitting and waiting, and unfortunately that can be a big problem. Domestic violence. So we know that some couples have very heated discussions, and if a neighbor hears any type of yelling or someone having problems at home and they call the police, that can also be a very big problem. Domestic violence in the US is something they take very seriously, and that can also harm your future very badly. So try to be away from any type of problems, any type of confusions, a large group of people, any type of setting that could cause any issue for your future here in the US. Conviction is not always necessary. Just the fact that you were charged and you had a criminal case can be a problem already and cause the revocation of your visa. Next slide, please. So
Before
the
we go
standards
on
for
there, Vivian, I just had a quick question on the previous
yes,
slide. You mentioned about the aspect with regards to minor crimes, right? And we've also seen that not necessarily just even, like in terms of driving without a license, but what about things like parking tickets or speeding tickets, things of that nature?
okay. So speeding tickets and parking tickets, they are considered not criminal. They are civil crimes. So for civil crimes, usually there is no problem. The problem is that sometimes because of a small violation, like your light on the car is not working or you failed to stop, they will then check you and realize there is something more serious. So it's because of a small thing like speeding or traffic light, any small or a parking ticket, they end up coming to you and then checking and realizing there is more serious stuff involved, like no license, or maybe you had a drink. Then you start problem for yourself. But if it's just minor civil violations like speeding tickets, fail to stop, a light violation, that's not a problem.
Yeah, we get asked that question quite a bit because we've had students that have like, oh, what about those cases? So I just wanted to
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So the standards for removal. So removal from the US can cause you a bar, and to return to the US, you might need to wait for 5 years, 10 years, depending on the type of issue that you had. Like we discussed, criminal convictions, frauds or misrepresentations, and even overstay or violation of a status can lead you to have a removal case. So what does that mean exactly? That means that the official that comes across your situation and realizes you might have had one of those enumerated on number 1, they can then report you to court or ICE or USCIS, and one of these agencies can then issue a document that's called NTA. NTA is a notice to appear. It's the citation for an immigration removal case. If you are placed in removal, you have to then show the government that you have a relief. You have a reason to stay here. So if you don't have a relative that can apply for you, that is a U.S. citizen or a legal resident, if you don't have an employment case that's pending, if you don't have anything that could potentially hold you in the U.S. that shows that you have ties in this country, it's going to be very hard to present a relief to the court. And with that, unfortunately, they will end up issuing a removal order and you're going to have to leave the country. If you stay in the United States after having a removal order, today, that's one of the priority top of the list for ICE to go after people. So people that have a criminal record, people that have a removal order, those are the people that ICE are going after. So having a removal order is very serious, has always been, but since January, it has been even worse because they are actually researching address and trying to find these people and actually physically deport those people. Expedited removal. So if you have been in the country for less than 2 years, you don't qualify to even see an immigration judge for immigration removal proceedings. You may be removed or deported by ICE without even having the chance to defend yourself before an immigration judge and showing that you would have a relief. They can actually physically deport you without due process, without seeing a judge. So it's a much faster removal proceeding because it's not before a judge and they can actually do that, unfortunately. Maybe that would be interesting for just an information. None of the students would be in that category, but maybe they know someone. If you come with an ESTA, which is usually if you have an European passport and you don't need a visa, if you come with an ESTA, you are in the same situation. You can be physically removed from the US without having the chance to see an immigration judge. It's a very expedited proceeding and you don't get the chance to even defend yourself. Number 5 is a tip. Obviously, if you or anyone you know receives an NTA, you have to contact an immigration attorney immediately to make sure that the charges that are on the NTA, that whatever they are listing as the problems is actually true, and to check if you have any type of relief and defense that can be presented to the judge. Otherwise, like I mentioned before, you're going to get a removal order and you're going to have to leave.
It's interesting you talked about the expedited removal for those present less than 2 years without a status. I know we get applications from students as well as we've known students that have that their status, their international student status has been terminated, and that they at that point in time they don't have their status, right? So the main important thing for them to be able to do that is to work through the reinstatement process as soon as possible, so that way they're not going for long periods of time without a status. Because if they go beyond a certain point in time, you're saying that it could be found out and that they could be deported without having expedited removal, without having to go through any due process, right? So in terms of that, if they have any issues in terms of termination, they need to go through the reinstatement process as soon as possible, right?
Yes, very, very good, Hamon, that you mentioned the reinstatement process. That's actually something that has saved a lot of clients that we were able to help. They had lost their status and we could then recuperate, right? Resolve their situation and then put them back in status in a way that now they have a path for their future and they can apply for something. So reinstatement is almost like a miracle, but obviously you have to have a reason to have had lost your status that's not really due to your own fault. So maybe let's say you changed your address with the USCIS, but they still sent the letters to your old address, or you tried to comply with everything, but I don't know, the day you went to do your biometrics appointment, the center was closed because it was snowing, and then you failed to get your biometrics taken, and then they considered your case abandoned, but it was not up to your fault. You tried, you went there, you did everything. So there should be a very good reason for losing your status, right? You must have tried to keep your status valid, but something failed in your way and prevented you to do so, but not to your own fault. But it's a very interesting situation when you can actually put a person back in status and then reopen the doors for an immigration legal status in the US after they had lost all of their hope.
And the timing is very important as well in regards to the
Yes.
reinstatement process, because again,
Yes.
the thing with that is, if you wait any longer, it could be considered, the fact that you're here without, the what is it that you mentioned earlier in terms of being here longer than you were supposed to be, right? So your extension of stay, right? So you extended your stay beyond what you were supposed to be here. So that's important to kind of note. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of point that
No, no, it's very good because that's one of the reasons too that we use is the person as soon as they found out. So as soon as they got the denial, they ran to try to fix it. That also counts, right? So if the person, for example, had a car accident, or the wife got pregnant and had a baby, or they I don't know, got into a depressive state, they couldn't leave the house, but as soon as that situation is fixed, they need to go after a way to fix the situation, and that also shows good faith and that the person is actually trying to comply with the rules, and because of something in the past weren't able to, but they will do everything they can to comply with their status. That's important for USCIS to see that as well.
Awesome, thank you.
So now we have a slide here about ICE at the door. So obviously, again, since January, everyone is in panic. We have seen a lot of videos on Instagram and social media all over the news as well. ICE raids, stopping people, knocking on the doors, breaking car windows. What can ICE do and what cannot ICE do? And what can we do to protect ourselves as well? So if ICE officers come to a home, workplace, or school, they may do so. But in order to enter private areas, they have to have a judicial warrant. If they don't have a judicial warrant, you do not have to let them in. You can keep your door closed. You can not answer the door, and they will have to leave. They cannot break the door and come in unless, again, they have a judicial warrant. In terms of cars, is a little different because the cars are on the street. So if they're knocking on your car and you are not opening, it's kind of a huge discussion, but it's more likely that they can break the window and get you out of the car because you are not inside your home, even though the car is private property, but it's on the street. So it's a very gray area and open for discussion. But we have had cases where they break the window and take the car window and take the person into custody, and that has been okay. So unfortunately, it's better if you are in the car to actually open the window and talk to the officer. You don't have to give information that's going to be harmful to you. This is very important. You do not have to say, I am out of status. I am on a student visa and I am working. You do not need to give information that's going to be against you. You have to say your name. You can say your name. You can give them an ID, a document of identification, but you certainly do not have to give them information that you know for sure that's going to be harmful to you. You can remain silent and you can refuse consent to entry in your house. You don't even need to open the door. And you can also always request to speak to an attorney and say, I will answer your questions when my attorney is present. You can ask for your attorney to be with you so you feel more comfortable. And after you discuss with your attorney, you can then give the answers. We have seen, unfortunately, ICE been working with the police of the towns and the state in a very good alliance, unfortunately, to go after people. So they do share information. We have all recently saw that IRS has also been allowed and requested to share information with DHS lately. So they are trying to make alliances in order to have access to people's information, such as bank accounts and also addresses and other private information. If ICE still comes to your door, stay calm and do not open unless they have a warrant. And if they do get to you, again, like I said, you can always be silent and ask for a call and call an attorney to help you. Next slide, please. Okay, advice on travel. So it's always advisable to consult with an immigration attorney to make sure that you can travel. If you have a student visa and you came from your country with the visa, it has always been okay to travel, but when you come back and you are talking to the officer at the airport, they are reanalyzing your case. Every time you leave the country and you come back, you are reapplying for admission. You have no right to enter. They will analyze your case, and if they think it's okay, they will let you in. And if they think there is a problem, they might refuse entry. So people tend to think, oh, those people at the airport, they don't know anything. I don't think they even care about my kid. No, they should be highly respected because they can send you back home, they can deport you, they can deny entry. They are very important inside the immigration system, and they have a lot of power. So every time you leave, you need to make sure that you haven't done anything that was not in compliance with your visa that could potentially be a reason for them to deny your entry. If you do have a case, like we say here, a U visa, an asylum, a VAWA case, so those are all cases where you were a victim of a crime back home or inside the US. Those are highly humanitarian. And in those cases, usually you can ask for a travel authorization and they will most likely let you in, but it's very different when it's different types of cases. Number 2 says, urgently assess if advance parole is needed. Most DACA and asylum applicants required to re-enter. So advance parole is basically the travel authorization. The technical name is advance parole. DACA, so DACA are those teenagers that came here before a certain date and have been here in the US for many, many years that were brought by their parents, and the Department of Homeland Security, they understand that they were not able to make a decision to come or not because they were brought as kids by their parents. So it's also highly humanitarian. So DACA holders, they can get travel authorization and most likely will let back in. If you don't have any immigration violations in your past, any unlawful presence, any criminal record, it's very unlikely that you're going to be readmitted. So if you leave, you're probably not going to be able to come back. If you are in removal proceedings, you're never going to be able to get back in. If you have a green card or citizenship, citizens, they will always certainly going to be allowed in unless they committed a very serious crime outside the US and Interpol advised the US and there is some type of connection between the countries that they need to send the citizen back, which is also very unlikely. So citizens almost 100% of the time we were allowed back in. Green card holders, they are also applying for admission when they come, but because they are legal residents, it's almost more likely that they will be let back in. And if any problem, be placed in removal proceedings to then reanalyze the green card, then they will be sent back home. It's very unlikely they will be sent back to their home country. It's more likely they will be let in. Always verify your documents. So we have had many clients that travel and don't realize the green card is expired or about to expire, or even the passport. That can also be a big problem. You need to check your documents before traveling abroad.
Which, talking about that also, as international students, getting that travel authorization from your DSO with the on your I-20 is also very important to make sure that that is happening prior to your travel, so that way you don't come across any issues. Because if you just leave without that, having that travel authorization noted on your I-20, you could also be stopped at the border as well. So. All right.
And also when they're coming back, they need to make sure they don't have anything on their phone, for example, that can be a cause for not being admitted. So again, students can't work. So if you by any chance know someone that's working on a student visa and have pictures, oh, look at me here at the restaurant serving people, or look at me cutting hair here, I'm a hairdresser. That's all on the phone. The officer at the airport can ask to see that person's phone. And then a lot of people say, okay, but what if I say, no, I don't have to let him see my phone. Okay, but then he also doesn't have to let you back in. He can send you back home. So it's going to be up to you if you want to show the phone and maybe be let back in, or not show the phone and certainly be sent back home. So pay attention to everything that's on your phone. If there is anything harmful, just delete your anything that might be harmful on your phone.
Again, the important key part to this is, again, don't engage in any unauthorized employment or things of that nature that could harm your F1 student visa, because if you're going against any kind of violation, so don't violate the terms of your visa is really what's important here, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Next slide.
So if you fail to maintain your non-immigrant status, so that happens when you overstay the period of time and you don't ask for an extension of the visa, you don't change the status to a student. If you, like we just said, do any kind of an authorized employment, or for example, if you're applying for an F1 and then you failed to do everything your DSO tells you to do, right? That can be a problem. So they need to follow all the steps and make sure they go to class and they have the presence that's required. If you don't have everything accordingly, you may then lose your status and then start accruing unlawful presence, and that can be a bar in the future for a green card or for any type of application you may want to do with the USCIS, and even future visas back home. So some people say, oh, I don't care if I'm gonna, violate the status or do anything wrong because I'm gonna go home anyway. Well, then one day you might want to come back and visit Disney World with your family. And then if you had violations in the past, like I said before, you might never be able to get a visa again. Some problems require a waiver that you might not be able to get. So watch out for that. Don't let that happen. Always comply with all of the rules. There is always a belief as well that if you do have some gap between status, for example, you extended your status or you changed to a student visa, but then you had a couple of days in the middle, oh, that's okay because you have 30 days of forgiven period. That's not true if you're going to stay in the US. So for example, you have an application for extension or a change of status, but you have a couple of days or 3 days or 1 day gap in the middle, that can be an impediment for a green card in the future. That is only forgiven if you leave the country. So if you leave the country, that's true. You have 33 days after your status ends to leave without having a bar or any problems. But if you stay and you later in the future try to apply for any type of status or green card or visa or anything, that gap can be a problem. So it's always important to plan yourself and not let any gaps in between your status that can be a problem and cause bars of 3 or 10 years in your future. Always check I-94 dates. Make sure now it's all electronic so you don't get any stamps or anything on your passport. That's normal, but you do need to check your status online on the website. Make sure, because another thing that I want to say, everyone thinks, oh, I came with a visa, especially a tourist visa, and they always give 6 months. No, they do not always give 6 months. That's the most common, it's 6 months, but they can give you 3 months. They can give you 15 days. They can even give you 4 days if they want. So you do have to check your I-94 to make sure how many days the officer gave you so you don't violate your status, especially if you get here and you like, and then you decide to change to a student visa or apply for something else. You cannot have that problem of having accrued unlawful presence because you didn't check your I-94 and you are not giving 6 months like you believed you had been given. I think we can go to the next slide, please. So maintenance of status. So we started our lecture with that. It's important to constant monitor. Don't break the law. Like we said here many times, don't work if you cannot work. When I said delete everything from your phone, that was actually a joke. Like Hamon said, we should not violate the status. We should not do anything that doesn't comply with the rules and all of the Department of Homeland Security guidance. So we should comply with everything so we don't have any problems. We do need to tell USCIS if we change address. So if you're not a citizen, if you're here on a visa, or if you're here on a green card, you have to let USCIS know any change of status, especially if you have an application pending. Otherwise, they will send you to your old address and you might lose a request for evidence, notice of intent to deny your case, and even an approval, and you're not going to know that has been issued and they sent it to your address, and that can harm your future for sure. Always keep with you, especially nowadays, your immigration documents. So if you have an approval from USCIS, if you have the visa on your passport, if you have I-94 electronic printed, always have everything with you. If you have employment authorization, carry the card. If you have a green card, carry the green card. I just don't think we should carry Social Security cards. That can be at home. But all of the other immigration documents should be with you at all times. For change of status. Oh, yes, this is important. So if you're going to apply for a change of status, you need to be on a status that's valid. So let's say you get here on a tourist visa, you decide then that you're going to study, but then you should leave in 2 weeks. You're not going to have time probably to prepare a change of status application to student in 2 weeks. So you might need to do an extension and then a change of status. We always advise that everyone that comes to our office to check with the school. The school will know if it's doable in the period of time that you have, but if it's a very short time, it's usually more advisable to apply for an extension and then for a change of status, so you have more time to organize yourself and have all of the documents ready to then apply for a change of status with the school that you have chosen.
Yeah, and the important thing to that, like you mentioned, is the amount of time that it takes to issue the I-20 based on the documentation that the student provides. So sometimes not all the documentation is in line, and so we cannot issue the I-20 if we don't have all the appropriate documentation to admit the student into the program. So.
Okay, so the last one, the two last ones we already mentioned. It's about domestic violence, and the last one about arrests and drug and alcohol related criminal problems. So if you are a victim of a crime in the US, if you are, let's say, like I said, you are at a bar and then there is a huge argument and people slap one another, and then you can apply for protection in the US, which is called U visa. So there is a list of crimes that qualify a person to apply for a U visa. It's not any crime. It needs to be one of the crimes that's listed on the USCIS website. But if you are a victim of a crime, you may qualify for a green card. And also, if you are married to a green card holder or a US citizen, and also you're a victim of abuse, it doesn't need to be physical abuse, it can be psychological abuse, you also may qualify for a green card. So that's very important to be spread. When people are being abused, they don't know what to do. They seem to be actionless, and it's very important that they protect themselves and maybe get a green card in the future if they do look for help. When it comes to, let's go to the last slide, please. So when it comes to drug and alcohol, like we discussed before, DUI is a very serious crime. Marijuana smoking, it's legal in the state, but it's illegal federally speaking. So USCIS will not, like, if they see that you have a crime related to, let's say, possessing marijuana, for example. So be very careful. Marijuana can be a problem, even though legal in some states, that can definitely harm your future as well. Even if the charges were dismissed without a conviction, that can be a problem if they are repetitive. If they have too many of the same charges, even if they were all dismissed, that could still be a problem. The reiteration of the conduct can be a problem. So it's very problematic for you if you have that. And obviously, we do not advise international travel. If you have any criminal matters open, they might not let you back in, and then you're going to leave that unresolved, and then it will be an impediment for you to come back to the US because you're not going to be able to come in because you have it open. But then they will only let you back in one day if you resolve it, but then you can't resolve because you're out. So it's kind of an effect that you don't want to be in. You should resolve before considering any international traveling. So I am yeah, I guess I am
Is
done
this the
with
end of the presentation? All right,
the end of the
awesome.
presentation, so I'm open to any questions.
So thank you, Vivian. We do have a ton of questions that are coming up. If you are raising your hand, please make sure that you put your question in the Q&A box. We will answer the questions as we get them. I know there are a ton of questions. So if you're ready, Vivian, I'm going to surefire you with all these questions as they are appearing. So
Let's do it.
Alrighty, Raisa, thank you for answering some of the questions. So we don't have to answer some questions here, but the first one is, hi, I'm on a F1 status. My OPT period has ended on May 5th. Now I'm on my grace period. What will happen if I get married to a person on asylum before my grace period will finish?
So it depends on where in the asylum process that person is. If the asylum has been granted, and there are also two types of asylum. There is asylum in the removal court and affirmative asylum. So I would need a little bit more information to answer, but let's say a generic answer would be if the asylum has been approved already, you'll be able to benefit from the asylum if you get married. But you would require a separate petition to kind of put you under that asylum. It will not be automatic.
Next question. My friend got an email from U.S. Embassy from his home country that his visa is revoked, and you kind of talked about this. Details of the email, name of full spelling, date of birth, and visa expiration date, month and year are all correct. Then my friend emailed the U.S. Embassy in his home country to ask about the confirmation of the visa revocation, but the embassy never replied. Does that mean that his visa is revoked? I guess they're wondering if that was fraudulent or scam.
Oh, it's not fraudulent. If it comes from the U.S. Embassy and all the information is correct, unfortunately, it's not fraudulent. They will probably not going to answer. They already advised what they needed to advise, and they will not answer, most likely.
I have a quick question about the new registration requirements for F2 and J2 children, because my son who has F2 visa, he is turning 14 years old upcoming September. Does he need to do biometric things? We did not receive any notes yet.
Yeah, they're not going to send anything. You have to check. Actually, USCIS has a very smart tool that you can use to check if you need to be registered. So you will answer yes or no questions until you get to the end, and they will tell you, yes, you need to register, or no, you do not need to register. So you can just research USCIS registration obligation or something like that, and you're going to be able to find that tool, and it will let you know if you need to register. There are exceptions, but most likely from what you told me, she probably does not need, because she came with a visa, right? Or I don't know if she got the F2 status here. If she came with a visa from abroad, most likely she's not going to need to register, but the tool will help you answer that question for sure.
I guess the same similar question is, does that mean he registered before 14th birthday? He should register again within 30 days after the child's 14th birthday.
Yeah, so yeah, because the website, not the website, sorry. The rule says even if you registered before, after you turn 14 and you are still here for more than 30 days, you need to register. But again, there are a few exceptions, so the tool will be the best to let you know if you have to register or not, because there are a lot of specific questions.
By the way, I wanted to also point out too that from Gardini Law with Viviane, and I know she can talk about that as well. That for CSI students, they are offering free consultations. So if you call Gardini Law, they will in fact if you want a consultation, they will give that consultation to you to see if that's the case or something like that that they could take over or try to work with you on that. So if you're a CSI student, you do have that benefit as well. And of course, we'll be announcing that as well. But I wanted to take this opportunity to say that as well. So if you don't get your questions answered here and you have additional questions, you can reach out to Gardini Law. I will also put it on the website. Actually, I'll show everybody on the screen here as well. I'll share the screen and I'll show everybody on their website. It's gardinilaw.com, and they have their phone number here. You can contact them directly. And if you're Brazilian and you want to talk to someone in Portuguese as well, they do have that option, as Viviane is also from there. So she can definitely help you out in that situation. There's another thing in these kind of situations going on. Would you recommend that it's safe to apply for OPT this year? As after the elections, there are some modifications and changes in rules for applying for OPT. I haven't seen anything in particular. I mean, we've had OPT approved and for students, but get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so far they haven't really touched OPT. They did mention they are going to stop issuing F1 visas for a period of time because they are going to be reanalyzing their criteria to give F1 visas. So they might in the future do something with OPTs as well. But for now, I haven't seen any changes that I don't see a problem applying for it at the moment.
I'm 28 years old, single, and currently on F1 visa. My mom has a green card. I would like to apply for the green card through my mom, but I wanted to ask how I can obtain work authorization while waiting on my priority date to get current. My brother, who's a citizen, has a small business. Can he sponsor my H-1B until my priority date is current?
Yeah, so for you to get an employment authorization through the process with your mom, it's not going to happen, unfortunately, until you reach your current date, your priority date. You're not going to qualify for an EAD, your work permit. Your brother cannot sponsor you. It cannot be someone that's so closely related to you, sponsoring you or any type of employment visa. There is a prohibition to that.
Is there a way to check if ICE agents have a valid warrant? If they use a fake one, is that precedent to an action against them?
I haven't heard of ICE officers using a fake warrant. They simply knock and yell, and if they have the warrant, they will show. I would not think they are using a fake warrant. I don't think that has ever happened. No. But again, if they say they have a warrant, but you don't see it, you still don't need to open the door, right? If they show like on your window, I don't know, that here's a warrant, then yes, I think you should trust them. But if they just say I have a warrant, you can still say, well, I'm not opening the door.
Yeah, and I think in the last webinar, we also talked a little bit about that you have to make sure that it's signed by a judge as well, because being a judicial warrant and ensuring that that's the case, because sometimes if that's not signed by a judge, then it's not very valid either. So
Yeah.
um, I've been on an F1 visa for about 10 years, and just last month I applied for OPT. And with everything that's happening, I'm worried about my OPT application. Do I need to do any alternative actions? I think part of it is, I know Raisa probably could answer some of this, is essentially you can continue to study and continue to maintain your status here in the US as an international student. But in that case, you would forego your OPT application. So that's, again, depending on what the student wants to do. But again, any thoughts there, Vivian?
I don't think you should worry. I think it's okay to, if the OPT was approved by USCIS, if they gave it to you, use it.
Yeah, I think he's saying that his application has not been approved yet, so he's just kind of worried about that.
No, I don't think you should worry. They do take more time in some applications, but just wait. That I don't think you should worry. I don't think you should worry.
Can you travel on a cruise and come back without a visa?
No,
Okay.
I mean,
Uh,
unless the cruise doesn't leave the territory of the US, but I think it's very risky, so my answer would be no.
okay. We have recently seen students whose student visas have been revoked without being properly notified. Is there any way for students to check their visa status as a precaution?
There is no way to check if the visa is valid. There is no website. There is no way. The only way would be if you apply for something, they will then give you an answer, oh, you no longer have a status or something like that. But I mean, they usually send an email, they usually send a letter, and that's again why it's so important to have your address updated. And if you move, to try to leave someone at the house where you used to live in charge of letting you know if something comes to you from Department of Homeland Security, so you don't miss any correspondence that could be really crucial to your life.
And also the DSO at your school could be very informative as well. If you want to check with your DSO at your school, I know Raisa will say that we did have some in terms of when their visas were revoked. We did get some notifications in terms of that, and I know we did talk to the students. So of course the DSO would be at your school would be a wealth of knowledge there. Can you travel to Canada or Mexico and come back within 30 days without a visa? And what is the percentage of entry?
No, you cannot. You need a visa.
Yeah. Can I get a student visa from another country like Canada, even though you're not from there?
No.
Yeah. I currently hold an F1 visa and have recently received my OPT approval. If I get a job that requires me to travel outside the US, is it possible for me to leave and re-enter the US while on OPT?
No.
And
The OPT doesn't give travel authorization. You would have to be a separate application. I'm not saying you cannot get it. You need to analyze that with the immigration attorney, but just the OPT doesn't give you that authorization.
Is it safe to travel outside the US if my program started only 1 month ago?
To travel outside of the program started a month ago?
They started the program just about a month ago. Is it safe for them to travel outside the U.S.? Now, considering what travel restrictions there are now, I wouldn't say that I would advise it, but then again, it's totally dependent on if you want to try it or not, as per what Vivian has also mentioned in regard to travel, right? So yeah, it's up
Yes.
to you if you want to take that chance and that risk at this time. Can I get a real ID with my I-20? I guess they're talking about with over at the DMV or RMV getting a real ID.
It's very complicated because I have had so many examples of people that go to the RMV and don't get it with someone, and the next day they go back there and talk to someone else and they get it. So I would say it's always worth trying if you do have all of the documents they list. And if you don't get it, maybe even trying one more time. It doesn't hurt.
I know we're at the top of the hour, Vivian, but do you have just a few more minutes to continue answering
Yes,
a few more
of
questions,
course.
if that's okay? Just a few more minutes and we'll kind of take it from there.
Hmm.
Can they check if you work? This is, I guess they're asking about USCIS or ICE. Can they check if you're actually working?
There is no way for them to track that unless it's by your bank activity or if they are investigating you and following you, or by pictures or posts, or obviously someone can always call the hotline, unfortunately, and report you. So there are ways they can find out, but it's not quite that easy.
Um, the same thing in regards to traveling outside the US. I think we've talked about this, so I'm not going to ask that one. Can student visa be extended before it expires? There's no extension essentially while you're here in the US. You would have to apply, like Vivian mentioned, in your home country for a visa, especially when you go back, when you go out of the country and come back. There's no extension per se for that. So that answers that. Um, okay,
But
let's,
come on. If that person came with a visa, let's say to study 4 years, and then they are here, they can still get an F1 status for a different course, right? So that
yeah,
way they would
correct.
be extending the
Yeah,
yeah.
not the visa, but
Yeah,
not extending the visa, but you can extend your status because, again, you are admitted as an international student for DS or duration of status. And in order to keep your status, as long as you continue to study and you continue to do what you need to as in a full course of study, you are still considered to be in an F1 status. So visa
correct,
wise, as far as going out of the country and coming back, you can't extend that, but you can keep your status while you're here.
correct.
Um, I recently applied for OPT. I've been waiting for 1.5 months now. In case it gets denied for some reason, I would enroll in a new program. Can I apply for CPT in the new program? The only problem that I see there is they say in this case it gets denied for some reason. So when that OPT gets denied, then a lot of the mostly in part of that your status will also be completed at that time, which means
Hmm.
that you no longer have a student status at that time.
Well, not necessarily means if you still within 60 days,
Within 60 days, yeah. Okay.
so you're okay. You're still
Yeah,
okay.
it's as long
But
as you're within your
otherwise,
60-day grace period. But if
yes.
you're past that 60-day grace period and of graduating, and then you get a denial after the 60 days, then you could be essentially out of status and accruing unlawful presence while you're here. So that's something to be very aware of, I would say, right? Um, if you're in process for working visa, the lottery one, and your driver's license expires in June when the F1 ends, can you get a temporary driver's license?
I
Um,
don't, they usually issue the driver's license according to the permanence that you have allowed here. So you might be able to get it for a month or so, yeah.
um, if you're changing status from F1 to apply for a green card, do you need to wait for the application to be approved to stop studying? Or you can stop going to school after you submitted an application?
It depends on the basis. So if you got married, for example, to an American citizen, you can stop studying right away. If you're applying through employment, I would advise you not to stop studying.
Somebody wanted your email or phone number so they can contact you. Like I showed you as well, gardinilaw.com. You can contact them directly and they can hook you up to Vivian and she can do consultation with you, or whoever, her office can do a consultation with you. Um, if you already answered this in regards to ICE on the street, driving in a car, can they detain you? You said that they could. And should I say that I'm a student with an active I-20? Of course, you said that make sure that you keep your documentation, and you don't have to answer that question, but you can, right?
Mhm.
My daughter is going to be 21 by September. Do I have time to apply for F1 status because she is F2?
She needs to apply for her own F1. She's no longer going to qualify to be under you, so she's going to have her own case now, separate from you with USCIS. So she needs to apply for her F1. she's no longer going to be able to keep that with you.
Yeah, so it's change of status process, so just like you
Mhm.
normally would for that. And of course, an attorney can help with that. Um, so are we allowed to get a state ID while since we do not have a social security number? I'm just worried traveling with a passport every time. But you do need to keep your passport, I would say, with you at all times, because again, you want to show what your status is in the US in case you get questioned, right? Is essentially what you said, Vivian.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to travel with your passport. It has your status on it, so I think it's even safer than not having it.
I guess somebody also had this question about mass health. I'm not so familiar with mass health, but hello, I'd like to know about mass health. Could it be a problem in the future for getting a green card if I have it?
So, I always ask this question to the USCIS officers when I had interviews with clients, and they always said everyone could apply for the limited mass health, which means the one for emergencies. So, if you want to have a massive plan that's going to allow you to have consultations about, dermatology, and no, you're not allowed, unfortunately. But if it's for emergency purposes, you were allowed. But I heard someone is thinking about modifying this rule, and any type of mass health might become a problem. Right now, we haven't heard anything yet. So you can still have the limited one that allows you to use it for emergency purposes.
And then another question was, you spoke about U visa. What kind of labor, when an employer says they will file for you, but either delay it intentionally or not? I'm not sure what that.
Yeah, that's unfortunately not a qualification for any type of U visa or VAW or anything like that. There is a huge discussion about T visas lately, but delaying doing the case for you is not a cause for a T visa.
Um, One question which is really interesting is I have a child born in the US and have Medicaid for the child only. Should I cancel that? The support I am
No,
receiving from the government is for a US citizen and not for me. Is that okay? Will I hurt my case? I am in the
no,
process of
that's
getting an
totally okay. No, that's totally okay. Absolutely allowed to have all of the benefits to the USC kid. The kid that was born in the US can have all of the benefits, medical, any type of help, anything they might get, you can get it, no problem at all. Just cannot be for you.
yeah. Um, Patricia asked, I'm in the US as a citizen with a visa already from your home country, which is Brazil. And she said, my visa will expire in 2 months and I'm still studying. Do I need to return to my home country to renew my visa or can I continue studying here? So you can continue to study here on a valid status. It's only when you go back home and to your home country and want to come back, that's when you would have issues if you don't have a valid visa. So the visa, again, is just so you can gain entry back in the US. Many student visas are being revoked without apparent reason. Should we keep checking our CVIS on the ICE website, or is there no need? And we kind of answered that as well. You can talk with the DSO and check, but for the most part, you will be notified if there is any issues.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't think there's cancellations that you're not going to be aware of.
yeah. I want to change my address. Does the office do this process? Now, when you're saying uh, change your address and does the office do this process, the DSOs here at CSI, the DS, you would notify the school and the school would make that change. If you're filing anything in terms of change of status or anything like that, you do want to make sure that you give the most updated address, as you mentioned, within 10 days. If not, then you will get the notification in the wrong place. And we always tell students, don't change your addresses. Otherwise, you have notifications that you won't know, and it might cause issues in the future, right? So it's
Yeah.
important to make sure that you keep your address the same as possible. Um, about flying within the U.S., it's okay to fly within the U.S. Again, they say real ID is required. Should we carry? What should we carry with us while going on the airplane? But a real ID is required in that sense, but you also have your passport, and your passport is an ID as well. So that allows you to be able to travel here within the U.S. without having to have that real ID, right? So
Correct. If you have a valid status, you can travel within the US, no problem with using your passport. Don't see any issues.
Somebody asked about the recording for this video. We are recording it, and Vivian, if you're okay with it, we will actually post it on our YouTube channel in the next day or so, and we'll definitely let everybody know. And that way, if y'all want access to this video to kind of go back through and see the recording, you can definitely have that chance to do so. Another question is, can you apply for asylum while on F1 if you have a valid reason? And suppose USCIS does not approve your request, will it affect your F1 status?
Yes, you can apply for asylum. Many things would have to be analyzed. How long have you been here? Why you haven't applied before? Because usually, USCIS and the court, they say you need the law, right? The rule is you need to apply within a year of your entry. So if you haven't done so, you would have to have a reason why you haven't applied within a year. So it's better if you talk to us and we can get a better grasp of the situation to check if it would still be doable and advisable for you to do so.
Yeah, and you said about consultation. One question was this one student says that they know about EB programs, so EB 1, 2, 3, I guess. And does Gardini Law offer consultations regarding this matter? And
yes,
okay. Just contact the office, right?
yes, just call us.
Let's see. A lot of this we've kind of answered in terms of the travel. My program ends. Okay. Are the credits granted by the state to assist with medical insurance a concern regarding the maintenance of F1 status in the future for adjustment of status? And you did mention that, again, Mass Health, those who are in Massachusetts, you just have to be aware about Mass Health, that there could be changes coming up in the future, even in regards to limited Mass Health as well. So just be in line with that. And if allowed to travel inside the US with a passport, what else showings I carry with me, like I-20 paper, or is not necessary? I believe that you should carry most all of your documentations that prove that you're a student, whether it be your passport with your visa, or if you did a change of status, your I-797A, which is your notice of approval that you received, as well as your I-20 to showcase that you are currently an active student, right? So that's important to be able to do. So yeah, I believe that with most all of those questions as it related to that, if you did not get your questions answered or you have additional questions and you want to do a consultation with Gardini Law, again, it's gardinilaw.com. If you do have additional questions that maybe we might not have gotten to at this webinar, the email address that I want you to send it to is international at csinow.edu. I'm putting that in the chat. If you have any questions that you would like answered through this webinar, like I said, international at csinow.edu, and we can answer those questions as much as possible. And then again, anything else that you have that you want a further consultation about for CSI students, you have that opportunity to call Gardini Law and be able to get that consultation as well. So don't hesitate to go ahead and make that call. Again, I would like to take this time to thank Viviane very much to be able to come here and present to us and for taking the time out. I know you're super busy with all of these cases that have been going on, especially more recently, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to share your knowledge with us. We really do appreciate that, and Gardini Law for all of your help and your support. And we at CSI and our students do really, truly appreciate it. Thank you again so very much. And we wish everybody the very best here, all of our attendees. Like I said, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to help. We're always here if you need us.
Thank you. Thank you, Raisa, as well. And thank you, participants. And we'll have another webinar, the last part of our webinar series next Thursday. So this will be the third aspect of our webinar series as well. So if you missed this one, want to be able to get the recording, we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel. So CSI Now is our YouTube channel. Just subscribe to that, and as soon as we put it out there, you'll get notification. And then we will also have the next webinar on next Thursday as well. So thank you very much again, everybody, and have a good rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.